After calculating the bent-up reinforcement and stirrup, provide material list, provide a material list. We will definitely try our best, according to our construction progress and the segments we are constructing. And then from our many dozens of or hundreds of rebar drawings, select the rebar that we need to process, and cutting per specifications and varieties. Try to process the important rebar and long rebar first. So the rebar is given to the workers. After we have calculated, you can get this material list. When calculating the material list, pay attention to the diameter of the rebar and steel grade. The smaller the diameter of the rebar, the cross-sectional area is small, and its tensile strength is weaker, and its steel grade is also the same. For grade 2 and grade 3 rebars, the tensile strength of the same 1 square millimeter is different. Of course, the calculation for cutting must be very accurate. If there is a calculation error, it will pose serious security risks for the installation of rebar and the tensile strength of the rebar. In this class, we mainly introduced such matters as rebar, like material list. After the material list is ready, we can process the rebar stack. Place in one place when stack the rebar. We must hang a tag, just like what we do in library. The front of the tag is the construction location, and with cutting length. Okay, so in this class, we mainly calculate the cutting length of bent-up reinforcement. What are the cutting lengths for bent-up reinforcement? Straight length plus diagonal length, plus overlap length.
Bend minus bend length.
Minus what bend? Bend or bending adjustment value. So it's not protective layer. Good. What else needs to be added? Length increased by hook. Increase. The second one is protection. When calculating the bent-up reinforcement, especially the horizontal projection, we need to pay attention to the definition of the protective layer. What is the definition of a protective layer? Is it the distance from the outer edge of the longitudinal reinforcement to the concrete surface? No, is it longitudinal reinforcement? The outermost layer of rebar. Please note that it is not longitudinal reinforcement. There is also a stirrup outside the longitudinal reinforcement. That is to say, the stirrup wraps the longitudinal reinforcement. If you think it is, you understand it as the distance from the longitudinal reinforcement to the surface of the concrete, then your protective layer will be thinner than our actual protective layer. Thinner than what we required. It will be what to the protective layer that we required? Thinner. Let's say the requirement is 30 millimeters. And you also put a stirrup on top. If the diameter of the stirrup is 8 millimeters, what you get will be 8 millimeters thinner than the requirement. You actually get a 22 millimeters layer. One is a protective layer. If you understand it this way, your protective layer will be thinner. This will affect the construction of the structure, no matter if it is smaller or larger, and for the installation of rebar, and pose a risk to rebar. Like tensile strength, also the angle of bent-up reinforcement. For the angle of bent-up reinforcement, we have inertia and the cutting length of the stirrup. The cutting length of the stirrup is relatively simple. It is much more simple than bent-up reinforcement because it put the bend adjustment value and the length increased by hook into a table. You just need to look up the table. It is okay, just understand the outer and inner lengths. The fifth is final material list. After our class ended, we need to calculate the material list. for a galvanized plating tank platform. In our steel construction training field, I will post it on the learning platform later. Material list. We should all have the ability to provide such a material list independently. This is the content we discussed in this class. We take a break at halftime. In the second half of the session, we will talk about the connection methods of rebar.